Shalom my friends, and welcome once again to Dwarven Destruction. Now as you can see, there is some difference here from where my last video ended, and there's a reason for that. You see, my previous video, I actually had it recorded, I got everything set up, but unfortunately at the very end, the video got corrupted. When I closed Fraps, the video got corrupted, and I lost everything I had done, and since I'd already quit out of Dwarf Fortress, what it does is after you quit, it saves the game, and there's only pretty much one save file per world, and the only way I would have been able to do that, or redo that, would have been to stop what I was doing, delete my world, and create and start again fresh. And I didn't want to do that, so I'll just continue from here. Now, as you can see, we have gotten started. This is my fishing area, where you see my fishing dwarf has started to leave everything on the ground. All these highlighted areas are trees that I've designated to be cut down, and these are my stockpiles because you start with a wagon, and I designated it to be removed, so everything is now on the ground. And right here are my fishery stations with a dwarf who has decided to fall asleep on the job. Personally, I don't find a fishery place, which would be filled with rusty hooks and fish guts, as a comfortable place to stay. But, the dwarf will sleep where he will, so we'll just let him do it. Over here, more highlighted, these are shrubs, which are what our herbalist is going to be picking, because in there contains seeds and berries which will be used for... Oh, and looks like my herbalist fell asleep as well. Here, all the highlighted areas here are areas that are going to be mining once everyone wakes up, because as you can see with the Z's, we actually have some beds created, and some of our dwarves actually decided to use them and actually go to sleep on them, unlike the ones who decide to fall asleep on the job. And over here are our crafting stations, which some of them can't actually be created just yet because I don't have the right activities marked on my dwarves. When we get more dwarves, that will change. Here is my masonry, which is going to start making doors, so I can start to close off some of these areas after they get created. That'll happen once the dwarves actually wake up. This is my trade depot. Once it actually gets created, it's used to trade goods. Once you get trade caravans, and now let me unpause, and the dwarves will once again jump to their jobs. And now I'm just going to do a quick look over the area. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot else going on. After all, the fort has just started out. We're going to let our dwarves do their thing. You can see them rushing about right down there. And here's my unit list. These are the dwarves that I currently have available to me. And over to the side, we have our livestock. We only have 2 female horses, not very useful because we won't be getting any foals out of that combination. And next to there, we have the animals in the area. Nothing too severe, but nothing too dangerous, I should say. And if you press C, you can zoom in on that specific critter. Here, we're going to zoom in on this owl. It's just sitting over here, floating in the air. So we'll now just hold Shift and less than to go down a level, and we are back on the main map where our dwarves are going about their business. Now I'm just going to start designating more plants to be gathered because, well, my dwarves will need something to do while my miners do their thing. And speaking of that, let's create a couple more rooms, shall we? So once again, we'll push D to designate. And actually, let me check my orders real quick. Yeah, I don't have anyone to create that just yet. That'll be something we'll worry about in the future when we actually have more dwarves, as dwarves tend to get migrants every couple seasons. When we get a couple more in, what we will do is we'll start designating other jobs, such as craftsmanship, which will cause them to create goods for us. And now let me create, a pantry. Since we don't have any place to eat just yet, we're going to use a diagonal space like that because food rots, and as food rots, it tends to generate miasma. And what miasma does is it really just makes dwarves unhappy, and we really do not want to have to deal with unhappy dwarves. So we're just gonna put this in a diagonal here. Our miner will get to work. Looks like it is. Looks like we're looking at sand. Sand now doesn't leave any clutter, so we can actually put a full stockpile here once it actually gets created. That'll be useful once it that'll be useful. That way we don't have to move any rock around to try and set a full stockpile, because anything that is occupied by some other space cannot actually be used. This is a picture of my stream, seeing if, because my fisher dwarf seemed to have moved around a bit, and oh, it looks like here we can see, look at his inventory, we can see that he's hauling some lamprey that my fisher dwarf has decided to catch. He's going to carry it over to the fishery station and gut it, clean it, prepare it, so it'll be actually suitable for food. And that, those are just some vermin remains. Vermin are just little creatures that don't really interact, but dwarves can actually get in contact with them, and they are not pleasant or not pleased with most vermin. You can capture them with a huntsman dwarf and train them for a pet. Frankly, I'm not all that interested in that just yet, so we're just going to ignore that and just continue making this stockpile. This is going to be my food stockpile, and what I'm going to do now is prepare a kitchen and booze area. I tend to always do rooms 3x3 for these, but since I seem to have messed up my designation there, you can always just use D then X to remove said designation. I'd find that 3 kitchens and 3 stills seems to be the perfect amount for a nice fort, a nice sized fort. You can feed probably up to 100 dwarves with just 3 of each, especially once you get enough in and you start to churn out the booze and the food at a nice pace. 3 will be enough to keep that many happy. Of course, if you get much more than that, then you'll unfortunately need to you're going to need to call out a couple more. Here I'm going to put a bower station, and as you saw, I accidentally almost put it in the wrong area. Those dark green X's, dwarves cannot pass through there. So you always want to make sure they have at least one green X to get to. That way they can build the station as well as actually get to it to produce the material. And that way they don't get starved behind the stall and die slowly and painfully from starvation. And then I remembered, what I'm going to want here is I'm actually going to need a butchery station. Butchery, what it does is you designate an animal to be butchered, you will take the animal over to the butchery station, slaughter it, and then you get its hide, its bones, and its meat for processing. Here I'm putting in some doors, that way I can set this entire area as a dormitory. When you designate something as a dormitory, that means any dwarf who comes in will be allowed to sit there, or sleep there, without causing any ruckus. Because if you just leave everything unclaimed, then any dwarf will claim a bed, and if any dwarf sleeps in that bed, the rest of your dwarves will not be too happy about that. Here, now that my dwarves have actually started to make the space, the next thing is to just put in the butchery station. Next we'll have to, of course, wait for it to be built. So I have to find... Yep, there I'm making my stalls, which are used for booze. Again, once you have a lot of dwarves, these are going to be running full stop. But since I only have a couple, I'm just going to put it in, and once my herbalist actually gets to it, because he's my only cook at the moment, it will be created, and we'll just put a couple orders for booze in, because dwarves need booze. That's one of the major things about this game, and here's me making the dormitory. Originally I thought barracks, but then I remembered. In the latest versions, if you set it up as a barracks are used only by military dwarves. If you wanted to set it up as a dormitory, so it's a free-for-all bed space, that'll be important, again, once we have more dwarves coming through. And now we will need to just sit here and wait for the rest of the dwarves to continue doing their thing. Let's see. Where is my herbalist anyway? Also, a dwarf will only create a structure if they have the actual activities listed for them. I do not remember if I had the correct things listed for my herbalist, so where exactly did I put him, I wonder? Oh yeah, and that's where I remembered that my carpenter is moving incredibly slow. That's why I remembered one little thing. You can check their status, their thoughts, and their physical attributes. Here we learn that she is pretty weak, and so by being weak, she carries things at a very slow clip. So I probably made a huge mistake making her my carpenter, and it means she will not be in the military, because we wouldn't want her injured, because it will take her a very, very long time for her to heal, and we do not really want to have to deal with that. So we'll just let her go about her business slowly, very slowly, making doors and things that we want. Let's see, every dwarf now, I was wondering why nothing was really getting done, and then I remembered, hauling things has a very high priority in this game. So what most of my dwarves are unfortunately doing is, since I designated those food areas, what everyone's going to do is they are going to get things from my stockpile from the wagon that I just deconstructed. So while my dwarves are now just hauling everything I have over to these stockpiles, and here's me putting in my kitchen. So again, it'll take a while for them to actually get that put together, because unfortunately, not only are they too busy hauling everything, but since I only have that one single cook and brewer and butcher, which I had to actually go in here, and I'm checking the labors to make sure I have everything required actually turned on, because I was wondering, why isn't anything that I want actually being constructed? Why is the cooking and still area not being constructed? Because dwarves, as far as I thought, dwarves like eating and getting drunk. So why are these orders of mine being completely ignored? And then I remembered that the main problem here is, again, hauling is high priority. So what my poor dwarf is doing is she's just running around and hauling everything. It's like, hey, I know you like moving things from one location to another. Who doesn't? I love organization too. But why aren't you building my dang kitchen? So all I can really do now is wait for her to get sorted. I could have turned off her hauling, but I actually didn't think about doing that at this point, so I figured I'd just let her haul her stuff. Eventually, definitely eventually, she'll get used to she'll actually finish hauling and actually do something useful like cook and start to make booze. And here I'm just, letting my dwarves do their thing, checking out what critters we got around. Here's me going back through the labors because I'm still sort of panicking. It's like, why aren't you doing what I actually want you to do? And that's me actually realizing, oh, hey, all your hauling activities are, all your labors are exactly the way they should be, so all I can really do now is, unfortunately, sit down and wait. I may be your dwarven overlord, but you can do, whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me. Feel free. I don't care if you want to starve to death or not. It has no concern over me. And there's me digging out. I'm deciding, you know what, I'm going to need more stockpiles. I am going to actually create a refuse stockpile. A refuse stockpile, what they do is is when you have a stockpile indoors, bones and shells and such will actually stay. And that's important, because if you put a refuse stockpile outside, not only will they eventually disintegrate, I'm guessing through the weather, they are also very easy to be stolen by kobolds and vermin, and bones are useful for making bone crafts, making bone bolts for when you actually have crossbows and ranged weaponry, as well as just keeping something nearby, one, as a trap for said creatures. And here's me actually adding brew orders, which will eventually, definitely eventually, get completed by our brewer. But unfortunately, again, we're going to need to wait till she gets done everything else that she's doing until she'll actually get around to that. So all I can really do is sit here and wait, and it looks like looks like they're going on a little break there. Yeah, because my miners decided, hey, I don't want to finish that little area so you can actually have a stockpile to use. No, we're just going to, do our own thing, because yay for us. And I really need to start thinking about setting up a dinner table. And this is me trying to get depot access, because as you saw earlier, I was creating a trade depot. Now, for a trade depot, you need at least a 3x3 entrance for trade wagons and a 3x3 entrance into the 5x5 depot. I was wondering why is that all red? Why can nothing come in? I completely forgot. I tried removing these slopes because, hey, maybe, a wagon can't get through here. Maybe that's going to be the problem. I completely forgot about one major concern here. That concern was I don't actually have the trade depot built. You can't exactly have access to a depot that hasn't actually been completed. But I'm going better safe than sorry. I cleaned out the slopes. I'm going to widen the area and smooth everything out. It's like maybe if they have easier access, it won't be that difficult, and they'll be able to actually slip in there. But what I actually needed to do here, rather than just widen everything out and set everything up, is I actually should have just let them, build the depot before I actually panicked about access. But anyway, that's about all. Well, all that can really be done now is they're going to do their thing. So shalom, thank you for tuning in, and until next time.